Don Charles is a man in high demand, certainly for boxing interviews. And I've seen a couple of them in the last few weeks. I've seen the Box Nation one he gave, which was a very good interview. And Don Charles is a man, he's someone who obviously I've known about for many, many years. I've never really went out to watch any of his interviews. If I have watched one, it might have been several years ago. And Don Charles is, look, he's very a respected trainer. He's taught him very highly, certainly at domestic level. But he was never someone who, when it came to looking to get a fight at a world level, you would really associate with. Derek Chisora being his best student, Frank Buglioni, the likes of them. You never really thought of anybody else, really. And then he joins up with Daniel Dubois. Dubois loses to Oleksandr Usyk, but beats Jarrell Miller and beats Hergovich, culminating in his stunning victory over Anthony Joshua. And Don Charles post fight was a man in high demand, and mainly because Don Charles is a more articulating character than I was going to say Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois. Well, I suppose you could say more than Anthony Joshua too, but Dubois is painfully shy. He's not the best speaker in front of the camera. When you've heard him over the phone, like on Talksport, he does seem like he's got a little bit more layers to him there. And obviously, you're only over the phone; you're not, face to face looking at a camera. So I thought, okay, Don Charles will be the guy that they're interviewing. And he gave an interview with Umar, and it was a very good interview. I enjoyed it. Certainly, you saw that Don Charles is an emotional character. He does take things very much to heart. And I don't want to say he carries the baggage. Maybe that's the wrong word to say. But things that have happened to him in the past, like maybe splitting up with fighters and, fighters not winning and him being... You see, with some people would... And I think we are too quick, certainly in this day and age, to have a look and blame a trainer. I mean, you see it now, like with a fighter like Errol Spence when he lost to Terence Crawford. Oh, we should leave Derek James. Derek James went from the trainer of the year in 22 to fighters saying, or people saying, how good is he a year later? Why? Because a couple of his fighters lost, and they lost to very, very good fighters like Terence Crawford. That's really makes you a bad trainer. What? And that was never really. It's only really recently that's kind of become a thing. But with Don Charles, criticism was there for a while. And there were certain things that you looked at Derek Chisora back in the day, he didn't punch very correctly. He was slapping a lot. He was really, if you look at Derek Chisora, I want to say pre-2019, he seemed to be slapping an awful lot in fights. And post-2019, that's when we started seeing Derek Chisora sitting in on his shots a lot more, rotating his fist a lot better, punching a lot more correctly. And that was after he had, of course, left Don Charles. So that was an observation that many people made. And Don Charles, again, in that interview, came across very well, but definitely an emotional character and someone who he's in the public eye now, following on from that fight, and he's letting loose. And then he gave that interview with Talksport on Saturday night with Gareth A. Davis and Adam Cattrall. And yeah, that was a little bit more of a, that was... I don't think he covered himself in as much glory as he did with the Box Nation interview. And towards the back end of that interview, Oleksandr Usyk was brought up. And he said things that I completely disagree with, calling Usyk a fake, saying that Usyk, basically, how can he be devout when he cheated? And I'm paraphrasing with that one, but basically having a go at Usyk and almost questioning his fate, which I think that's extremely disrespectful thing to do, regardless of your feelings about the guy or not, especially if he is a man of faith. And Oleksandr Usyk certainly is. I mean, he is a devout a Christian as you would ever want to see. I believe he's a member of the Eastern Orthodox Church, or certainly there's several different branches of it, but that kind of sector of Christianity. And you can tell that he follows the teachings very much so. And he is, as I said, devout in his faith. So to question that, I mean, I don't know how you could do that. And that was also to do with the fight that Daniel Dubois had with Usyk, where, he's saying, and again, he's talking about, cheating, and, he's bringing up the commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness, which essentially is it is the lie, and maybe you could possibly class it the same. But if you want to go with that, then you could easily say, well, Dubois was saying he'd win by any means necessary. And, what do you class that as? your guy is saying that, that's okay, and Usyk gets hit low, takes a five. Well, it doesn't take the full 5 minutes, but you get what I mean. That's cheating. Excuse me. I don't get that. I don't get how you could come to that conclusion. So I go on Boxing Scene and I see an article. It's an interview Boxing Scene did with Don Charles. I'm reading through it and he's talking about Daniel Dubois only operating at 70% capacity, that there is still more layers to his game. And yeah, I think that Dubois, you probably could get some more layers to his game. Is Don Charles the man to do that? We shall see. They've only been working together for 14 months. It does take a little while longer. I mean, Tyson Fury being one of the rare examples of someone who can leave one trainer in Ben Davis and go to another one in Sugar Hill and have a very short training camp with them, and then ultimately pick the style up very quick and look particularly good in his next fight. That's more, Fury is an exception rather than the rules to that anyway. For the most part, when a fighter switches trainer, there is that kind of teething period. You saw that especially with Joseph Parker and Andy Lee in the first Chisora fight. I thought he looked worse than he did under Kevin Barry with Andy Lee. And I knew Andy Lee wasn't a bad trainer, but then you give it a little bit of time, they gel. He's looking a lot better now. So I'm reading through this Boxing Scene interview here, and the question of Oleksandr Usyk, the fight in Poland, comes up, and I'm going to read it here directly. He says, I never discount the Usyk fight. We didn't get the result in Poland, but I never discount that. I have to mention that that was a win on all accounts. That was a win before we lost. He drew experience from that, which he did, and you can take a lot of good even from a bad situation. He broke up that man. He dropped him. His central nervous system was shut down. I know what I saw, so no one else can tell me anything. You can go online and look at it. He, Usyk, was let off by the industry. The referee, whatever, allowed to regroup and use his experience to get the win he got. Given it was their first outing as a team and Dubois was a significant underdog, Charles was satisfied after Poland. Doesn't sound like it. Particularly how things subsequently work out. He knew what he had. He knew what he had, and the potential his rough diamond had shown. Now, there's more to add, but I just want to go back here. He was let off by the industry. The industry see him. If you talk about the boxing industry seem like they just want to discount Oleksandr Usyk by any means. I mean, the industry has been unbelievably disrespectful to Oleksandr Usyk in the past. I mean, Oleksandr Usyk was almost robbed. Again, well, he was a split decision. I don't know how one judge scored in favour of Anthony Joshua the second fight. In the first fight with Tyson Fury, again, one judge scored at the Tyson Fury. I don't really know, when upon reflection, how you could score it any other way. When Anthony Joshua fought Francis Ngannou and knocked him out in 2 rounds, you had people just saying, just discard Oleksandr Usyk. Let's just do Joshua versus Anthony Joshua now. He's like, well, sorry, hang on a minute. Okay, listen, I want us to be undisputed. And I'm one of these people who gave Tyson Fury hell, and rightly so, for ducking Oleksandr Usyk, right? If there was other people there, say in the comments or anything like that, who were giving Fury hell, rightly so, and now you're saying, actually, just don't even fight him. Fight Joshua. Well, no, you've lost. No, you've lost it. You've lost it then and there. That is the fight that has to happen, and it did. And even then, it was like the boxing industry. People inside are just like, Alexander, just push him aside. I'm telling you now, if Daniel Dubois had beaten, I'd say maybe that would have been the preference. Because with Dubois, they probably would have seen a weak champion there. All right, maybe Anthony Joshua can go and rehabilitate himself against Daniel Dubois. That would have been the perception. I mean, that was the perception going into their fight last week. You had people saying, Joshua gets by him, Fury beats Usyk, we get the fight. Yeah, we get the fight. It's like, you do realise they both have particularly tough tests in front of them. And, it's not a guarantee that Fury I'd say it's very unlikely he comes through Usyk again. But Dubois was live, and obviously he was more than live. We know what happened. And kind of carry on here. How the next 14 months go, Charles doesn't know. He purposefully steers clear of talking about the next step in business rather than focus on the job between the ropes. There was more to the Usyk fight. Is Charles keen for a return with Joshua? If that's what it is, that's what it is, he sighs. When they ask me, are you good with this fight we're proposing, I will say yes or no. If it's Joshua, the answer is a capital Y-E-S. capital S. I'll welcome that. And if it's the winner of Usyk Fury on December the 21st, I would welcome that. If it's Usyk again, does Charles see man better? If I want to this again, if it is Usyk, does Charles see man as better equipped? I was looking at that. I was like, what the hell? Better equipped to deal with the undisputed champion than when they fought last August in Poland. I would say he's very, very equipped, Charles replied, smiling this time. Our relationship, that was our first fight, and we had 15 weeks preparing for it, and now we've been together 14 months, so there's going to be a lot of difference. I will take that into consideration as well. The understanding is there, and he's already been in there with Usyk. He knows he can hurt Usyk, and definitely we would relish the opportunity to right the wrong, the fighter and the coaching staff. Charles goes back to Poland once more, and again argues in defense of his fighter and what happened. Not discrediting Usyk, what he's done. You have to admire what the man has done. He's a genius. From cruiserweight to unified to become undisputed at heavyweight. Not only did he do that, he's the undisputed champion. You have to salute that. I salute it. He's phenomenal. He's a generational great, irrespective of what happens next. But when it comes to what happened to us in Poland, I'm not a bitter guy. I'm just a guy who doesn't like being cheated, and we got cheated out of that. Nevertheless, look at where we are today. We relish the opportunity to rematch him. Should he succeed against Fury, I don't believe he will second time around. I believe Fury beats him. Should he be the one Daniel's fighting, we'll relish that opportunity too. There we go. Okie dokie. So, yeah, there's more to add, but it's more about, Fury and Dubois and stuff like that. Again, I think when you listen to Don Charles talk about Daniel Dubois, when he talk about Fury Usyk, you can tell that he's coming from a place of bitterness, you could argue, because he's like, oh, Fury was winning the fight and he let Usyk back in. No, that's not what I'm saying, and that's not what many people saying, and that's not what the punch stats state. So, there you go on that one. And, he's saying that they got cheated. Well, how? You're losing me here. So, you're saying the boxing industry let Usyk off. Well, it's common knowledge you have up to 5 minutes, and he didn't even take the full 5 minutes. How are you cheated? The referee whose word is final ruled that it was low. Oleksandr Usyk, being very astute in the art of boxing, knowing the rules, and you should too, you've up to 5 minutes, so you're not obliged to get straight back up and let's go. Yeah, some fighters might do it because they're bravado, they don't want to be a wounded animal, they don't want to come across as that. So they get straight back up and I was hit low, but 5 minutes, all right, 10 seconds, boom, let's go. Some fighters do it, some don't. Oleksandr Usyk is a very, very smart fighter, and if he knows, right, get the air back into my lungs, get fully recovered, let's assess what he did. I have plenty of time. Okay, we're good to go. How is that cheating, Don Charles? Make that make sense to me. I understand you're going to think your guy won. Well, he just didn't. And that fight was not going his way. It wasn't like you could say, oh, he was like against Anthony Joshua where, he was winning from the start, he was hurting him. No, if you look at that fight right there told me that Oleksandr Usyk was going to be Tyson Fury, because I thought he looked particularly good in that fight. Even, countering the 5th round low blow, I thought he looked particularly good in that fight, and I was like, he's not lost a beat. He's going to go in there and do a job on Fury. He's not lost a beat. And that was the fight. So Don Charles can say whatever he wants to say. He could say I'm not bitter. It's like Carl Froch when he says he's not bitter but against Andre Ward. And Carl Froch, all he does is knock on, oh, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. And he always has to interject and say, but I'm not bitter. Oh, wow, jeez, you could have fooled me. Who would have thought you're not bitter? I'd have never have guessed. That's Don Charles. Let me know. It's gone on a bit long, this one, hasn't it? Let me know your thoughts on what Don Charles says. Bringing up the Usyk fight once again, saying they got cheated. Listen, we talked this to death last year. Do you agree? I certainly don't. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. And subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Peace.